Hi everybody. Hope you're doing as well as can be. Oh, it's going to be a fun video today. So it's going to be kind of two parts. The first part is finishing up, well, not finishing up, but kind of a finishing up of the parts of the North American indigenous peoples with the Wyandot peoples. And then I'm going to go into the calendar. We're going to talk about some things. We're going to talk about the stars. We're going to talk about some goddesses. Okay? So, just so you're prepared for how this is going to go today. And then some little side note stuff like I like to do. Okay? So, with the Wyandot peoples. So, when I not started this, but I do have a video on the Iroquois, and I mention the peoples, the Wyandot peoples. So this is just a little bit more specific for them. So the Wyandot, also known as the Wyandot, like Wyandot, is how Wyandot is spelled, the one I'm speaking about. Then they're also known as the Wyandot. So it's the same spelling, Wyandotte. The Wendat, so Wendat. And the Wyandot, or Huron people. Now what I found interesting is that Wyandot sounds similar to Wyandot, or Wajet, as it's been pronounced in more modern times. And that is the name of a goddess. That was also a name of Sirius, which we'll be getting to in the next part of this. Okay, also Sopdet. But I thought that was interesting because what I keep seeing are kind of links to other names. So the Wyandot peoples, because I was looking up deities, right? They are woodland. They are in the northeastern woodlands of the U.S. and Canada. And the Wyandot language belongs to the Iroquois language. Then I did some research about the Iroquois language. So in their language, from what I've learned, and I hope that this is true, it looks like it is, the P, this movement, P, Ma, with the lips coming together, is not part of their language. So Ma and Pa are not in their language. But what is in their language is combining a feeling into almost many names. For example, instead of saying she went to the river, the saying might be the river is next to her. Okay? It's hard to explain, but you can ask ChatGPT, which is what I did, and also you can do a little research on the language. But I found that really interesting because I'm often talking about language, and we talk about goddesses and their names today. But did we call them that? I feel like we didn't. I feel like we had elemental names. And also when it comes to the calendar and seasons, this is something you will also see, is oftentimes the name of the season is after the moon. And we'll see it in our own today world. This is harvest moon. This is the blood moon. This is the blue moon. So we do recognize certain moon phases, but we've named the months after people or deities, which is cool, but also we used to do it differently. Okay? And, okay, the Wyandot people are in Canada, or Huron people, Wendat. So from what I've learned, this was the Wendat Nation has the two First Nations, and that's in Canada, okay? And then the U.S., it's the Wyandot people, the Wyandotte Nation, is federally recognized in Wyandot, Oklahoma. And there are some that self-identify as Wyandot. So there's the Wyandot with the two D-T-T-E with the two T's. And then there's Wyandot with a D-O-T spelling. And they are, what I quoted, remnants of the Onondaga or tobacco people, tobacco Petun people, which was a French given name, the Petun, all right? So people who did not belong to the Wendat or the Huron, they have come from a founding nation of the Confederacy of the Atahensic. So they've connected themselves to this tribe, but not everyone may have been directly descended from the quote unquote like Huron, or they are, but they were known as the tobacco people, which I also wanted to make a little note about. The tobacco people, just side note, okay? Okay, after, this is what I have written, after their defeat in 1649 with the Long War with 5 nations of the Haudenosaunee, some of the Quebec and some of the Quebec peoples went with the Jesuits, and some merged with neighboring nations. Okay, and oh wait, went the wrong way. And some of those people are the Wyandot or tobacco peoples. And then this is some of their names, the tobacco peoples. Wyandot. Is that like Dionysus? It's spelled similarly. Atahensic. Etenomtaterononon. So I think our names might have been longer. I'm just saying. And this might have meant like the tobacco people mountain, you know, because either you can tell by some of these names the dialect behind it. There's no M's and there's no P's. A lot of t and act. Okay, and one of their names was Inan Otatertaton, which I feel like sounds like the Matterhorn. I know I'm kind of jumping around, but I feel like we're seeing that some of these names, especially names like Mazda or the symbol on the Starbucks, go way back, and people have been privy to them for quite a while. Now, continuing. Those people, known as the tobacco people, became the Wyandot people. And part of their land is Michigan and northern Idaho. And they were forced onto Indian territory because this became mostly Oklahoma, parts of Kansas, but mostly Oklahoma. And we know that because of today's still modern prisoners of war, we know the story, right? I don't have to go into great detail, but they are related to the Erie, the Neutral Nation, the Wenro, the Susquehannock, and the Tianonatate. Okay? So you can see in the language the lack of the lips coming together. It's a different language. It's a different sound and a different meaning. So just, Okay. Now, let's see here. All right. And I had read this before. This is how I know I did a video on the Wyandot people, or the peoples of Canada. Maybe the Huron is maybe who also I had done a video on. This is a similar saying. So this is a quote. French sailors thought that the bristly hairstyle of the Wyandot warriors resembled that of a Boer or cat nation. Iroquois. So there's some theories about how some of the names came about. And then, or that Algonquin words, Karoon, straight coast, or Turon, crooked coast, becoming Huron. So there's some theories about the etymology and the language behind the peoples. But so did Algonquin language also influence the Iroquois, or were those two different groups of people who might have influenced the name, is what I gathered, but this is just based off of not a lot of research, just a little bit. Okay, and then, so, deities. The Ioshika, creation deity, related to Ha-Hag-Wahid-Yu, and this was the son of the goddess Atahensic. Remember? I did a video on her. Atahensic, sky woman. So it all goes back. Atahensic is part of the Iroquoian goddess creation stories. And that story, the Atahensic story, is very similar to the Tiamat story, where her son created the universe and the earth and everything with her body. So, okay. Now, that is the conclusion with North American deities, and specifically the Wyandot. And then I went a little bit into the South American goddesses, or gods of creation, specifically goddesses. And what I found wasn't a lot where I was looking. I'm going to do more because I have found South American deities. We've talked about them, and go into more specific detail and try to bring in as many as I can, and talk about language and talk about similarities. Okay, so here's something interesting. I don't know if you guys knew this, but this is Inca, and the word is Apu. And the reason also why I bring up this word is because in the Egyptian pantheon we have Anpu, or Anput, which is the female representation of what is now named Anubis. So I thought that was interesting. So the term Apu is used to describe the spirit of the mountains and sometimes solitary rocks, displaying an anthropomorphic features that protect the local people. And this dates back to the Incan Empire. Okay, so the more I did on that, a little bit more research on that, was you will see names of places with Apu in front of it. I think including, I wanted to say the Andes, but I did find some information sustaining that certain mountains and certain places will have Apu in front of it. Oh, I know a good example is, or you will see Apu within the name. So Pachamama is one of them. Pacha. That was one of the names listed there. Pachamama. And another deity that I've spoken about. I think it was Mama Kila. But there were other names for them, which had a pu in there. Okay? It means God. And it's not gender specific. But it describes the mountains. Okay? And sometimes solitary objects. Now, the calendar. Wait, before I move away from the indigenous, I want to keep going. I'm going to keep going with the indigenous, especially South America, and I will find some detail to what I was speaking about. It says my phone, but a lot of stuff has happened recently, so my organization is a little wonky, is the best way to say that. But I do have it, and I will share that in the next Indigenous Goddess video. Okay. You just want some attention? The calendar. The stars. Okay. So, I do all this stuff with the moon and the stars and trying to figure out the calendar. And we just had solstice. And what solstice made me start thinking about is, wait a second, on the equator, there's not really a notice of solstice. When you're on the equator, that's why it's called the equator, because most of the time the day and night are pretty even. There's not a big difference in noticing how long the days or nights are. So where did this celebration of the equinox originate? And then I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, wait a second. So if we're on this disc, circle globe, or whatever it is that we're on, that we're moving through, giant spaceship, tree, and you consider the Big Dipper. Well, you're not going to see the Big Dipper below the equator. And actually, you're only going to see the Big Dipper up until a certain point, which I think is just before the equator. So some don't even see the Big Dipper if they're very close to the equator. And then you have the Southern Cross, which you only see if you are at the southern hemisphere or the southern part of this, spaceship we're on. Okay, so you start thinking about it. So the crosses came from the stars. Well, who studied the stars? The great mothers. And so, you know what? And then I started thinking, all of the pyramids and all of the buildings of the ancient peoples and even some modern peoples are around the constellation called Sirius. You know why? I learned two things. One is you can see Sirius and the alignment of Orion and the Pleiades around the whole entire world. Was that our original clock? That would be something that even at the equator you would know things had changed for the northern hemisphere or for the southern hemisphere, especially if you are a nautical clan where you're traveling on the ocean. You're going to want to know where those stars are all the time. They're going to be some of the most important stars. And then I think movies like Moana help explain that depending on how you were taught, you focused on certain stars. That's how you knew your way around. That would represent some sort of time and calendar, but mostly direction, right? Now, then I started thinking, oh, and then I mentioned this to one of my friends, and they said the reason why New Year's Day is the day that it is because Sirius can be seen at midnight all around the world. How many of y'all knew that? I didn't know that. So I feel like that's a hint. Because if you're on the northern hemisphere, yeah, spring would be like the new year. And then if you're on the southern hemisphere, fall would be like the new year. There would be no... Because we just had April 1st, and the story is that April 1st was to fool us into thinking... Now, I do think that there's something around April Fool's Day, because if you go by the 13-month... If you go by the moon calendar, and you include January as the 13th month, February, March, April, then the next 2 months, did we even have an April? Okay, so there might be some truth to that, but I think it's more around changing from the 28 days, changing from the moon to the sun. And I think that that is also a part of how patriarchy set in. Because if we were always following the stars and paying attention to the moon and the stars, that's how we knew what the seasons were. It didn't matter what part of the world you were on, especially if you paid attention. I call it Artemis, or the goddess, but what is now known as Orion, Sopdet Wajet, now known as Sirius, and the Pleiades, which has many stories of 9 sisters, or at least 9 stars. Okay? So, and there are 9 stars. This is not a myth. There are actually 9 stars. Some say even 11, and some say possibly more. Okay? My point is, those are always referenced. Always. Like, you can go to different parts of the world, and you'll hear stories about Orion, Sirius, and the Pleiades. Okay? Was that the original clock? I think it was. This is my theory. I think the original clock was Wajet, the great mother huntress, or was it a huntress, or was it somebody pointing to like where we came from in the stars, like the Pleiades, and that, this is our origins, right? This is where supposedly we get the word origin is from Orion. So the great goddesses, timekeeper, Sirius, Orion, the Pleiades. And then patriarchy sets in. And patriarchy slowly changes how we view the calendar, slowly changes the names of the stars, keeps the story a little bit, but associates it. And this is where I think they are literally telling us what happened in stories like the Marduk story, where he says, I changed the stars. There's also scripture, supposedly the story is that he and the Sumerians went by the moon and followed their mother's calendar. But eventually it became the father's calendar, and I think that is part of... I think if you take the story from the sky and the earth that were told and acknowledged by the great mothers, and you turn them into stories and acknowledgments of this great father, and you give him the credit of parthenogenesis and all these things, okay? So, yeah, did I mention everything? Oh, okay, and then, why I didn't say this before either. So, in astrology, in modern day astrology, we go by the planets that are closest to furthest from the earth, right? So we start with Earth. Actually, Earth isn't even in astrology, which is really something we need to think about, because we didn't do that. Great mothers were like, we're not including the Earth. We're going to do all the other planets. We did not do that. That would be that wouldn't be like smart. You know what I'm saying? That wouldn't be paying attention to where we were, and we didn't do that, is what I was shown. So, and what I remember. So, then we have the Gregorian calendar and the days of the week. So, you know, with my 9-day calendar, it goes like this. Hold on, let me grab it. Is this 2025? Yes. Is it? Let me make sure. I realize that on calendars it actually doesn't say the year. Isn't that funny? Okay, 2025. So it goes Earth, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. That's the 9 planets. I feel like I left one out. No, I got everybody. But the days of the week. We started on Sunday, technically. And then the next day is Moon Day. And then it's Mars Day. Then it's Mercury Day. Then it's Jupiter Day. Then it's Venus Day. Then it's Saturn's Day. So I looked that up. I was like, why do we have the names of the days of the week that we do? And it is said that each of those days starts with that planet. So the first hour of that day starts with that planet. Well, who decided that? Because supposedly the days used to start at noon. And, you know, I've heard somebody say the days started at 6 a.m. And we actually have religions to this day that say that the day begins at the end of when the sun goes down. So, stop it. Oh, my dog thinks somebody knocked at the door. Good boy. It doesn't make any sense. Right? Why did they move around the days of the week? Because there are other things. Okay, let's just please tell me I went into April. I didn't. I didn't go into April. I'm going to pause it. We're not that far in, so I'm going to figure it out. Hold on. Okay, so I'm just going to play along with you guys as I do this. So we just had a new moon at the end of March on the 29th, but according to my calculations, the new moon was from the 28th, the 29th was both days, and then went back to waxing on the 30th. Okay, so we just had half moon on Friday yesterday, and that was Neptune, according to my calculations, when I start the day of the week with Earth. I don't include the moon. I go by the moon, but it's not included when we talk about the planets. And then for 2 years, not this, okay, so we're going to look at Easter, right? Let's see. I'm going to figure this out real quick, because Easter falls a week before the new moon, and it is considered Passover, and it ends at sundown. So how come in Orthodox religion the day ends at sundown? Or sometimes with like Islam and Judaism, the day starts sometimes at the end of the day. They'll start Ramadan, or they will start Hanukkah at the end of the day. We've talked about this. But I would also figure out that certain planets land on those days based on the moon, based on the stars, not based on the sun. And everything that we talk about, astrology is literally named the study of the stars. That's what astrology means. So astronomy and astrology, that's the stars, which you can only see at night. when the moon is or is not out. Based on the moon. You see? So, sure, here on the northern hemisphere, we could say it's a new year with the spring, but was it actually a new year because of Sirius? All around the world? That's not a coincidence. So, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to tell you what's going on today and then Easter, okay? And then I'm going to do some side note stuff. But I even linked this to the crosses and where they even got that information. Because the cross on the northern hemisphere is based off the Big Dipper, and the cross in the southern hemisphere is based off the Southern Cross. So then what happens at the equator? They don't see either one of those. You see what I'm saying about time and all of that? But the only thing that even at the equator you're still going to see is Sirius, Orion, aka Artemis, and the Pleiades. Okay? Everyone all around the world. That's why New Year's. So this is all, it just makes me it makes me excited, and also like, what are they doing to our brains? What are they doing to our bodies? Our natural connection to time, our natural connection to observation. Do you see it? It's so obvious, I feel like. And then the days of the week? Oh, come on. Okay, and here's what's wild is this one isn't the New Year's that starts. I'm sorry. I'm doing the calendar still based on the 9 days. I've stepped away from that a little bit because we really do see like the 28 days works, and which is 2 times 14, and it does seem to match with the menstruation of mothers, great mothers, and the moon. But I just keep seeing how important 9 is, and 9 was, and 9 will show up again. How it works with numbers. Like, it's too coincidental that also in Chinese medicine or Eastern medicine, 9 is very important. There's Oya, who relates to Pluto. Why? Because there's 9 planets. And so I feel like we're shown, and the name 9 is in feminine. So I think it's important. Is my point. So I do the 9 days with the calendar, and I still see them as weeks. I see them as 9-day weeks based on the planets. And I've told you, so this is how I began it. Starting the 9-day, 3-week month, because it's 3 9-day weeks, right? So that's 27 days. The day of the new moon, because according to history and according to like the Missing Secrets of Women, the encyclopedia, it says that we started the month with the new moon or the no moon or the dark moon, right? So, okay, let's just say that is what we did. Then, here's something interesting. So today is Sunday, April 6th, okay? Earth Day. Yesterday, Saturday, happened to be a Pluto day. Now watch what happens. So, today being Earth Day, we would go through the week, and by Saturday, on the Gregorian calendar, which is the full moon, it is Uranus Day. And it's Passover. It's Uranus, and it's Passover, which is on a Saturday. And it begins at sundown. Why are we still beginning things at sundown? If the correct time is midnight. And then if we're starting the days of the week based on what planet rules that daytime, are we basing it off of this? Because no one is honoring Uranus. I'm just saying. But would be, well, they're saying that each hour of the day is ruled by a different planet. But if day starts at sundown, or if day starts at noon, or if day starts at 6 a.m., what planet is it really? Right, okay. Then we go, guess how many days? 8 days, or 9 days from the 12th, which is Passover, and then the next is Palm Sunday. Okay. Then we have Easter Sunday, Passover, ends at sundown. Orthodox Easter. It's the Orthodox Easter. Guess what day is ruling that? According to my calculation, Saturn. So we have Pluto yesterday, Uranus next week, and then Saturn on the Sunday of Passover. And we'll hear, especially within the occult, how much Saturn rules things. So tell me again that this doesn't make sense. I know it doesn't make sense. I know it's hard to put together, especially with my days out of time. How does that fit in? And then we look at the Mayan calendar. Who created that? You know, Great Mothers did. And is that based on the entire spaceship planet we're on? Or just parts of it? Because that's the other thing. This is what we're told. We're told, like, this is the equator, right? Is it? Is it the equator? Is there a whole bunch of more land? Maybe the equator's down here. You see what I'm saying? Like, what are they? This is what, okay. The reason why I came up with this is because we have the moon and we have the stars. We notice those things. And yes, it's true. If you think about, like, why wouldn't there be Tauruses and Aries and Sagittariuses all over the place? No, instead there's literal pyramids which now supposedly look like engine part pieces, all aligned with the 3 stars in Orion's belt. Is that because you could see it all around the world, no matter what? And then we have our New Year's, which I just learned. Like, I'm going to have to do some more studying on that, okay? All right, so what else did I want to talk about? So there's something fun I'm going to show you guys here in a second. Hopefully it works. I don't know if it'll be dark enough, but you'll get the idea, and then I'll be like, go try it in the dark, and what's up with that? Because that's interesting. Didn't know that was something. But, I was doing some reading on Osiris in the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. I definitely want to share that with you all, because it's everything that we see about the modern day Jesus, you will also see written about the ancient deity, Osiris, or the ancient, not the deity part, obviously a deity, but the ancient. Was it ancient? We don't know, especially when we're talking about time and all that stuff. Okay, so I'll mention the little fun thing. Right? So the other night, I'm putting a Band-Aid on. Let's see if I can make it work. I doubt it. I don't think it's going to be dark enough. We'll see. I'm going to turn off this light. I'm going to try to turn off this light. I'm going to pause it. Okay, it might work. We'll see. So I'm putting a Band-Aid on, and I noticed this. Oh, you can't see it. It's too light. Oh, and then I accidentally paused it. Oh, it's too light. Okay, so I'm going to turn the lights back on because you weren't able to see that. But in the dark, when you pull this apart, the sides glow in the dark as you're pulling it apart. Like it's static. It's like it's static. That's what it looks like. And even sometimes when you peel these off, they'll make that little green. It's like, it looks like green. It looks like glow in the dark green. And then I was like, has anybody else noticed this? And then I purposely, I did end up using the Band-Aids, but I purposely opened a couple more Band-Aids in the dark, and I was like, what in the heck? Has anybody else seen that? What the heck? And there was a word thing I came up with. I'm not gonna worry about that. We're gonna talk a little bit about, I'm gonna do a card. I'm gonna do a Great Mother card. So myself and many others are going through mother wound shadow work, or mother wound work. Shadow work maybe, but because shadow work is light work. I saw that post the other day and I'm stealing it, and I thank you for whoever posted that, but you're correct. They are correct. When we start working with our emotions, I'm going to use an example because I had a great example today of, I think it was talking about like kids and, so speaking of emotional triggers, because we're going to talk about community real quick and the word communism. Community is what communism is supposed to mean. But because of how it was presented politically, because community is not supposed to be political, right? Community, when you have a community, it's not political. It's a community. Like everyone's involved. There's no real hierarchy or kind of like caste system, right? So the irony of the word is there, right? Because community is what communism is supposed to mean. Now, because of how it has been taught, there are some emotions behind that word and what it means and how people feel about it. That is a perfect example. It is a word that has a construct behind it that has been taught to us, and we respond because of a construct teaching us that this is what that word means, and if you go along with it, it's bad. Because what ended up happening in those groups of people was one person was ruling a community, which is not communism. That is called an oligarchy or a tyrant, right? Or a king or a queen, one person ruling over the many is not community. So it's just an example of how emotions come with me. Emotions sometimes can be taught through just social construct. And so I say all that because our country and each of us individually, because Great Mother has risen back to her authoritative place and is helping us remember and helping us heal, part of what will show up is our mother wounds. And so I've been doing cards and such like that to help myself process through my own mother wound. This one must need to come out because it keeps going. We'll see. And who showed up recently for me is Oya. And though I am under the knowledge of where that pantheon is said to have come from, that is one of the names of one of the elementals, right? or this is what you will also see across the board, is the indigenous peoples or the pre-colonized people, their deities were elements or human-like or animal-like. You know, it was beyond human. And also many of those deities or spirits or elementals were ancestors. Our ancestors. They are ancestors. They are ancestors. Just straight up. So, in that is, I've been pulling cards. So I'm going to pull a card. I'm not exactly, this is kind of just general. And I've been shuffling this whole time I'm talking. So I'm going to let a card come out and share it with you guys. And that will be the conclusion of our video today. Which, at 30 something, I was like, oh, I'm doing good. I'm almost done. And then now, okay. Here's the card. Yes. Oh my gosh, this is the card. This is the card that kept showing up. And I was like, oh, well, if it's meant to show up, it'll show up. Bam. Isn't that amazing? Athena. Wisdom and knowledge. Athena. So I theorized that Athena looked different than this. I think that most deities looked different than how we've been taught that they look. Here, I'll show you, because this is the other picture one of my friends brought back from Greece of Athena. Okay, just to clarify, right? So Athena. Okay, so what do we see here? We see the moon, an owl, which relates to Lilith. We see a lily, okay, which relates to the womb, the yoni. We see a lot of symbolism in this. So with that is just a recognition of what our remembrances are, who we are, and our lineage. Because again, these spirit beings are our ancestors. They're not untouchable. They're not something that is not for us. They are for us. They are us. We are them. And this is another kind of, I think, passed down. Give me some sparks there. Perceptions that may not be completely true to the elemental deities that we now today like bring about or represent. And then when it comes to our own mother wounds, there are always hints in our everyday emotional responses or reactions or awarenesses trying to guide us to what might be the hard thing to do, aka like shadow work or light work, aka, you know, something that will bring you to truth. Truth is light. And you can only find truth through darkness, through the Great Mother, is my theory. Okay. Now, we're gonna check in here with Athena. And then also her name, Athena. So there are some links to words we use every day that go back to her. And I'm just kind of drawing a blank right now because I started thinking of it. I want to say author. Athena. Author. I think author is linked to Athena. But I could be wrong. All right. Wisdom and knowledge. Athena, a Greek goddess of wisdom, a powerful and wise warrior goddess who battles using her wits and diplomacy. She was born from... You know how I feel about these kind of stories, but I'm going to read it. She was born from Zeus's head, fully grown and wearing armor, and she was his favorite. She protects all those who call upon her. She is a lover of arts and literature. Her companion animal is the cunning and wise owl. She is also represented by the olive tree, which she created in a contest against Poseidon to win the favor of the Greeks. When the people and the gods saw the shade, oil, and olives provided by the tree, Athena was judged the better gift, and she was awarded the city of Athens. I did not know that. Her message: rely on your own power, knowledge, and wisdom to help you with your current challenge. Be open to learning more about your situation from all angles. Be humble and unlearn and relearn as needed. This will help you expand your wisdom. Overcome difficulties through diplomatic wit and strategy. The battles faced in life are not to be fought with violence, gossip, or manipulation. The violence part, yeah, I agree. Gossip, I don't think is bad. And I think manipulation is, as long as it's in your benefit and you're paying attention to what is happening, but manipulation out of, control or to benefit off of somebody else's energy is not cool. But I just want to clarify that because we have demonized so many things that are related to the feminine or to what females do to survive, that I just want to clarify that part, okay? And that sometimes you have to stop enabling even family members. That is actually part of it. Sometimes our mother wound could be needing to let go of our mother or prominent female figures in our lives that are not in alignment with uplifting, supporting, and nurturing you or what you're doing or your dreams, okay? Because we'll see if we have a wounded mother relationship, we might reflect that in our actual love relationships. Because the love we are seeking is actually from our mothers. But society doesn't tell us that, so we look for it in a relationship and we mirror whatever our nervous system has taught us to survive through. So, is an example of what can happen in that kind of situation. Sorry, thanks for listening. Okay. And instead, face trials head on with truth on your side, always seeking the highest good for all. Focus on your strength and perseverance to overcome obstacles. Be strengthened from within and honor your own wisdom and knowledge. Do not be reactive to your circumstances. All right, I can listen to that. Trust that all you will need will come to you, but be prepared and well informed. Your power tool in this situation is wisdom. You can gain wisdom through book learning, life experience, and your own divine intellect. Inner resources. Engage all of these for success and clarity. Don't second guess your feelings, but stay grounded in truth and justice instead of aggression. Lean on your wisdom with grace, knowing you are well equipped with wise intuition and innate power to deal with whatever comes your way. All right, so Athena is good to show up in disputes, any legal battles, to help with cognitive skills and memorization. When you're experiencing challenges and need help trusting yourself and your own wisdom. For strength to overcome life's challenges. When you're tempted to lash out in anger. We're going to talk about that for a second. For help with tests and exams. Okay, again, if you're aware of your emotions, you're not going to lash out in anger. Now, if you're angry, find a way to, not find a way, but I encourage you to maybe seek ways to channel that energy. Anger, especially for ladies and women, females, is something that has been also demonized. So healthy anger is important. Anger is like fire. It moves things, it burns things, it motivates things. Anger can be healthy. But yes, if you're aware of your emotions, you're not going to lash out. Okay? So I just want to, almost in honor of Athena, say like healthy anger is important. And standing up for yourself or really recognizing where boundaries are necessary, regardless of who it's with, can be very healthy. Okay? Just want to say that. That's part of my motherhood, just working through boundaries, being able to say no when all I've done, especially with my mother. One of my sayings, and also hopefully you can see it, I finished it. I added some things. It's kind of far away, so you can't really tell what's going on there. But the Mommy and I are one is finished. And that's part of it. Like recognizing that we can be connected to our mothers, but also even in the womb, there's a boundary. There's always healthy boundaries in place. And if your mother didn't teach you how to say no to her, it might make it hard. It might make it difficult to say no to others. This might be where some people's people pleasing comes from, is the kind of reaction based on emotions and the nervous system that has to say yes in a situation where they might need to actually learn to say no. And that is very difficult to say to your mother. It's difficult to say no to your mother. But that might be part of the training, is to be able to, in a healthy way, create boundaries for yourself without harming or hurting your mother, but being aware, being aware. All right. Thanks for listening to all that. We're going to go a little more deep on the mother wound and ways to recognize yourself and your emotions. Check out my Patreon. Also, thanks for being here, listening, subscribing, sharing. See you the next time. Take care.